7:00 p.m. Time for our Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021 virtual board meeting. It is time for our roll call. Could you please call the roll, Teresa?
Mr. Craig.
Here.
Mr. Estheimer.
Present.
Mr. Freitas.
Here.
Mr. Green.
Here.
Mr. Lamos.
Here.
Dr. Pomponio.
Here.
Mr. Sage.
Here.
All right, thank you very much. And let's call roll, or let's do a pledge of allegiance, pardon me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Southgate's mission statement, learning for life. Our vision statement, Southgate Community Schools, the best choice for students and parents. Brings to item D, revisions and approval of agenda.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Pomponio.
Support.
Who was that? Mr. Green. All right, any discussion? All right, seeing none. Ms. Grohowski, will you call the vote?
Mr. Estheimer.
Yes.
Mr. Freitas.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yeah.
Mr. Lamos.
Yes.
Dr. Pomponio.
Yes.
Mr. Sage.
Yes.
Mr. Craig.
Yes.
Thank you. We have an agenda. Brings us to item E, citizens' comments. Ms. Irvine, do we have citizens' comments tonight?
No, we have no citizen comments this evening.
All right, thank you very much. Well, that'll take us right into item F, our presentations, fiscal year 21 budget amendment.
Yep, and I will turn this over to Barb to go ahead and walk us through the budget amendment for this evening.
Good evening. I'm still kind of new at presenting, so bear with me a second. Okay. Okay, do you see the budget? Excellent. Okay. So tonight we're going to do or present another proposed amended budget. This is our second of the year. And I'm going to say that these are all of our funds now. The last one that you saw in December was general operating fund only. And since I can't fit this whole thing, what I would like to do is address the assumptions as we go through the parts of the spreadsheet. So the general operating fund is first, and put that off of there. So with revenue, I wanted to point out again that our local tax revenue is based on our full 18 mil levy as authorized by law on taxable non-principal residence property, except for commercial personal property, which is levied at 6 mils. And so that would be up here in the local sources of 5 million. In the state sources of 30 million, the state aid foundation allowance has not changed from 1920. It is still $8,111 per pupil. But enrollment has decreased by a net of only 50.06 pupils from the fall of 19, which includes our virtual 23A pupils at 19.17. And the reason for that is that the state has sort of rescued the entire state by allowing a super blend this year, which is 75% of the fall 2019 full-time enrollment, plus 25% of our fall of 20. We did experience a loss of $405,550 as a result of that. But our actual loss in pupils was 267.64 in the fall of 20, which would have been a loss of $2,170,828. So had there not been that super blind calculation. So you'll see, if you're looking at the original budget for state, it was only projected at 25 million, and now we're about 4 million higher than that. In addition, we have under state sources some MIPSERS revenue. MIPSERS is the Michigan Public School Employee Retirement System. And because they did a change in the calculation, which should help districts be a little bit more aligned with our actual employees, we are experiencing an extra $271,000 this year to offset some of that retirement cost that I'll talk about later. Then also up under federal sources, we received around $2 million extra that was for COVID funding grants and other grants. But the net effect of that is going to be zero. The way that we budget is we put the revenue in and we put the expenditures to match down below. So your net effect to fund balance will be zero. And then that is under other sources. That's where our enhancement money lies. And I do talk a little bit about the enhancement millage. I expect that it'll be a little bit smaller than it was in previous years because of our declining enrollment again. Shouldn't be too bad though, because they are using the super blend calculation to award us our share of the millage money. Okay, so that takes us to $42,537,723 in total revenue in the general fund. Expenditures, let's see, we have the last year of our employee severance agreement payments for $258,871. That is the general fund portion only. Also included in the estimated expenditures throughout basic instruction and throughout the entire budget is additional severance from employees who are retiring. And I budgeted $458 for that, knowing what their current banks are and their current daily rate of pay. So we have quite a bit in there for severance this year. Our hard cap increase was 3.3%, which shows up in our health insurance throughout the entire budget again. And the retirement costs, the MIPSERS that I was talking about earlier, our retirement costs are budgeted at 42.72%, which is mandated by the Office of Retirement Services, but they do offset 14.51% of that total expense. So our net retirement cost is 28.21%, which is an increase of 0.71% over 1920. In this budget, we have 3 fewer teaching positions. As I mentioned, we had a voluntary and 2 layoffs, a voluntary layoff and 2 layoffs. We did reinstate 1 administrator position in January that was not originally in there. That'll be down here in the support instructional staff area. Our enhancement millage dollars have been allocated at $406,650, which is the usual allocations that the board has seen in past years. And that takes us down to $42,241,167. And fortunately, we do have some funding left from the last amendment that you saw. And that brings our projected general fund balance as a percentage of unrestricted revenue to 12.26%. The state early warning calculation is required to be 5% or greater. So we did hit that mark. Let's see, I'm going to scroll down to Beacon Day Treatment. Beacon Day Treatment, we had to approve a budget with them early last year, back in February. So I have updated our budget and we are going to be doing a revision, but that won't be until April. So you will see our final budget when June rolls around for that because of the timing. But basically, with Beacon Day treatment, everything in goes out and it zeroes out. Other than I have a transfer to the general fund of $200,000, which is from our indirect costs that we're able to take. And see if there's anything else. That would be it. So,
Can I ask a question?
sure.
Thank you. On the, can you go back up, scroll back up just a little bit, please?
On Beacon?
Yes, on Beacon. Thank you. Why is the timing on this different than our normal budget framework? You're saying June?
RISA works ahead. So like in February of each year, they're doing the budget for the following year. So the original budget that was put in would be equal to the budget that was approved back in February of 20. So then we have a first amendment that's due somewhere in the fall. And so that's what I'm picking up now is the last approved budget. We will have a second revision that goes in April. It's due April 23rd. So that second revision, I can't make changes until RISA approves. And so then we'll be caught up in June. So when I come back to you with the final amended budget, it will include the new figures.
So what is their premise or what is their reasoning for having a different fiscal? You may not know. I'm just curious.
No, I don't really know how they got that schedule as far as how early they go ahead and approve. I don't know if Kelly Thomas is out there. Do you have an answer for that, Kelly?
If not, that's okay. I don't want to hold up the presentation. I was just curious.
It's
And then
part of the procedures that the whole county agreed on. So in the rules of creating the program. So in order for them to change that, they would have to get all the district levels on to track. But she's actually referring to two different budgets. The budget in February is for next year. And then we do actual cost reports to make sure we zero out by the end of the year and that Beacon doesn't cost us money. That's why we have a 2 or 3 times, is it 3 times a year, Barb, that we do amendments, or twice a year, just to make sure if we have a drop or a raise in students that it's adjusted that within that school year.
We do 2 amendments to the original and a final actual.
Right. So it's 3 total that we do throughout the year so the February budget was our proposal for what we want them to approve for next year. Mm-hmm. And then there's a whole committee that approves that. And then these are from last year's budget. This is reporting our actual costs.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Kelly. Okay, so let's begin. I've updated the food service budget. I do show a slight drop in revenue here for the time being, and I am showing that they are going to be dipping into their fund balance that was left over from last year, but they will still be able to contribute the indirect cost to the district to the max that we're allowed, which is within these transfers right here, $67,950 based on their expenditures and revenue. We'll still leave food service with a fund balance of $39,294. And community services, which would be our current latchkey preschool and enrichment program. So with our GSRP program, I have new program. I have less money going into the latchkey because that GSRP program is going to move over into the general fund. It's not going to be a part of this fund anymore. So you'll see a decrease in revenue, local revenue, which is tuition for the latchkey program. Our preschool tuition is down also. due to COVID and only partial year that she's had the program open. And then I have 0 going into enrichment at this point. Right now, they're actually giving out refunds as opposed to taking money in. So I think that had to be a timing difference between last year and then the return of school and people asking for their money back from the classes that they couldn't take in last fiscal year. So I am showing that the Latchkey program, Latchkey/preschool program brought in grant money of $119,400 from one-time only grants from the COVID funding that Crystal applied for. And half of that money, $63,000 roughly, came in July and August, but we weren't allowed to recognize that money until 2021. So it's recognized here, which they did need it, because we still need to transfer funding in from the general fund of $54,643 at this point. Total wages right now projected through the end of the year are $138,633, benefits of $109,390. Purchase services and their supplies and miscellaneous are $5,000 roughly.
Barb, just as a note, as we talked about, this transfer from general fund into that actually won't happen because we'll be able to displace some of the costs in here and transfer them to our GSRP. Right, that's kind of what we talked about. So we won't actually have an impact to the general fund. We can talk about that more.
That's correct. Okay, so it's the wording. Yeah, it's moving to the general fund, but within the GSRP grant fund.
It's transferring from there, so it won't touch our general fund. So none of our general fund will go to offset any of this, and it'll be absorbed by the new GSRP money. Okay, just want to make
Correct. Yeah, that's correct. The main thing is it's out of this fund, and so we do see reduction here in expenses and revenue. I had enrichment purchases of only $10,650, which was basically their brochure. They were able to come up with grant funding for the employee that was here before, and 0 fund balance again. Last is our student school activity fund. If you recall last year, this was GASB 84 requirement to move formerly student activity accounts to this fund if they were administered by district at all and they were not truly custodial. So we had to prepare a budget, and then because of COVID, it was extended. So they did not look at it last year, and now it is a requirement that it's in place this year. I have left my budget the same. I have not changed it. It was based on funding coming in, and we really do have very little funding going into these clubs and activities this year. We have some, but overall, I think that this is still going to be fairly accurate until the real fundraising season starts coming, is right now. They're trying to raise money for their events. So they will have an ending fund balance of $210,256 projected. And that's it.
Thank you, Barb. Are there any questions for Barb?
Yes, I have a couple.
Go ahead, Dr. P.
The first thing I was wanting to ask is, I know previously we had the buildings on a set budget. Are the buildings still on a budget that they're working from, or is it eliminated?
Oh, no. Yes, they do work with the budget that was approved by the board back in June to start with. So that would be the original budget that they're given. And the amendments that, I did in December reflected a few little changes. And then this budget here reflects more additional changes that have met for actual expenses. Like if we had any new hires or any people leave, their salaries in those function codes are adjusted.
Okay, thank you. And the other question is, and it's kind of related to this, but is there a place where we're tracking the per pupil funding of the loss of students that we've seen over the years? And is that being tracked along with the percentage of students that we're losing?
I think the funding, I don't know that Debbie keeps a spreadsheet.
Yes, we are. Let me jump in on that one. We are tracking it. And when you start seeing us develop the budget for next year, you're going to see us start to include the real impact of the student loss. So
Okay.
that'll be part of the new budget that you'll be asked to approve, and we start putting together in May.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Pomponio. Any other questions for Ms. Wilson? Mr. Green.
So speaking of the budget in May, and I know we can't be fortune tellers, but I mean, it looks, the super blended, we know how that looks right now. We don't know what the state's going to do, but having that 12% equity fund is nice. But in the fall, if we don't recoup what's happening, and yeah, the severance pay is gone, that's $300,000 in the last year, but we're staring down the barrel of $2.1 million, almost $2.2 million of getting hit with this FTE next year. That equity fund is going to dip right back down below, very, very quickly in a major way. So I think it's not so much of a question, but more of a statement, is that I think we can't be, I understand that this is the budget for this year, but I think as we're looking forward, let's not get caught up in fool's gold that we're in a good situation, because $2.2 million that's staring down our necks in February is going to be a game changer, which we're going to have to make some decisions. Thank you.
Yeah, good point. We got a little bit of a waiver this year for the circumstances, but I'm not sure that's going to happen next year. Mr. Craig.
So yeah, I guess just to excuse me, piggyback off what Andy's saying, it's not 2.2, it's going to be 4.4, because there's no reason to think we're not going to lose another 250. So we're going to realize the 267 from this year and probably have that another 250 on top of it, until somebody can show me why we're not going to expect that. Because I mean, that's been our trend in our on our forecast. So we're not realizing it this year because the state came up with this super blend process. But next year we're going to realize that and whatever we lose, again. So yeah, it could go from 2.2 to 4.4 real fast. And I realized that we had to spend a lot of that money, on unique COVID style education. But that's concerning to me that we weren't really able to save as much as I'd hoped we could have saved out of that. And then I want to kind of call attention to the 42.72% for retirement. That's the retirement rate that ORS mandates us to pay. And then they come back with the budgeting gives us 14.51%. So we have to make up that gap. Almost 30% we're paying in, and all this is in Barb, I guess the question I'd ask is, that's really considered in accountant speak, that's the normal cost, right? That's the year to year. They're not making up the unfunded liability. They're just covering this year's nut. Right?
What I understand is that piece that they give us back is always legislation on how much money they have in their budget. So, we can hope that they can fund us more, which is partially what they were planning to do this year by changing the formula. So we'll see. It's still too early. I don't have information yet on next year, but I'd like to see if they can pick up more of that, knowing that schools are struggling.
Oh yeah, no, I understand. But when we give them, because they give us the 14, we add our 30, we push it back, it comes out to 42 point something. That's just their normal cost for the year to cover what they have operating. That's not eating into their unfunded liability. They have they have billions in unfunded liability that's not even touching. Just to give people kind of an understanding of the Ponzi scheme that the retirement system is. You know, it's really kind of scary. Everybody should be a little concerned about how that works. So I guess I just want to point that out too. And then one of the things you touched on last was fundraising. So I'm getting a little nervous about fundraising out there. I think we really need to, I know it's not necessarily a budget item, but I think we need to start taking a look at fundraising that's happening in the district and what's happening in the district's name and regulate that in some way. I think there's some things out there that are kind of scary, and that's something we probably need to start talking about at some point.
So Trustee Craig, I had an opportunity to touch base with our counsel for policy, the author who, Les Albertson, I think, is who manages our policy book. And we are going to convene the policy subcommittee. And I do think that fundraising can become a policy question that we can look at some language around.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Anybody else?
I just wanted to mention that we did cover some of the funding for the GoFundMe or the other types of fundraisers that were out there before. So that's something that definitely needs to be monitored and revisited. So I'm sure we'll cover that.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item G. Thank you, Barb, by the way. You can remove the presentation. I appreciate that. Moving on to item G, our superintendent update.
So I just want to take a few moments to recognize all of our districts and regional participants right now. We are in the middle of regionals at cheerleading right now. It's happening as we speak, and our Southgate cheerleaders are now first place right now in regionals. We have another group that's going to go. We have wrestlers that are heading to regionals on Saturday. And we've got 2 district champions among them, which is pretty phenomenal. And 7 of our wrestlers are moving on there. We've got a varsity bowler who's bowling on Saturday as well. So it looks like we're headed to the state finals for cheerleading on Saturday morning. And I'm going to guess we're going to head to the state finals for wrestling that next Saturday. I'm very confident, and I wish everybody luck, and I'm looking forward to our bowler as well. And varsity basketball is finally back online and in districts, and they are something to watch. So if you can live stream that from we have a YouTube channel that all of our competitions are live streamed. You can go and watch them play, and they are exceptional. They're a great team. I recommend watching them. It's Thursday night at 7. So I just want to bring those up and say congratulations to all of you. And we're in the middle of kindergarten enrollment season. And for all of our new kindergartners are coming, our new Titans who've been enrolling, I just want to say welcome. And we're excited to have you. We have preschool orientation happening tomorrow night. And on Thursday, we have our very first PTO co-council. So all of the PTOs of the district will be coming together to talk about how we support our district in a more comprehensive way. So that's really exciting, and if board members would like to attend, it is a virtual meeting on Thursday at 7 p.m. So if you'd like the link, I will pass that on to you. And that's my update for today.
Thank you very much. Moving to item H, our finance update. I assume we've already had that covered with the presentation. So we'll move to item I, consent agenda, which consists of minutes from the March 9th, 2021 closed session, the March 9th, 2021 regular meeting, and our HR update.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Dr. Pomponio, we have support. Looking for a second to that. Mr. Green.
Please unmute.
All right, I saw thumbs up. Any discussion on this consent agenda? Seeing none, Ms. Groskey, will you please call the question?
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Lamos,
Yes.
Dr. Pomponio,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Estheimer.
Yes. Thank you all. Motion carries. And move us into our action items for the night. So action item number 1 is the approval of the DMS overnight trip to Washington, D.C. Ms. Irvine, who will be presenting?
I will go ahead and present this just to give a broad overview, and then I do have both Ms. Tackett and Hinsman here, as well as the teacher who's in charge of this particular trip. And as you know, last spring, this is an annual trip that our DMS takes, and last spring, trips got shut down that were planned in the spring. It didn't matter where you were, what district you were in, what kind of a trip it was, it all got shut down. And so I know that the board approved a postponement of this trip to this spring. But I do feel that as we consider this really needs to come back to the board to make sure that the board is comfortable approving this trip in the current environment. And I do think that in order to make that decision, everyone needs to understand kind of how we're going to handle safety protocols. And so I do have Ms. Tackett here and the teacher here to talk about that. So I'll transfer that over. I do think it's really important that if the Board of Education decides to cancel this trip, there will be pieces of the trip that will be returned financially. If the board does not, then individual parents who may make a decision not to attend because of COVID may not get their money back. So this is a moment in which we need to decide, is this going to move forward or not? And so I'm going to go ahead now and turn this over to Ms. Tackett.
Actually,
whichever
I think
one.
Ms. Tackett's going to let me
Okay.
because I have been in contact with the travel company in great detail. So I have been talking with them since last May, as all of you guys know. Ms. Soko and I, we love running this trip. And so we have been hearing all of their safety precautions, and we were ready to go. And then Ms. Irvine wanted just to double check it with you. So I am here to answer any questions that you have. I did want to give you a little information. We currently at this time have 114 total travelers that are scheduled for this trip. It was actually 118 just earlier this week. We do have a total of 3 buses, so that puts us at about 38 people per bus. And I know Mr. Freitas and Dr. Pomponio, you guys have been on that bus at 55 people, so I'm sure you could appreciate going down to 38 buses, see the difference. We do have a requirement that they do have testing. For 5 days prior to travel, they want the PCR test, not the rapid test. They have even said, even if you are vaccinated, you do have to have proof of a negative test. And they have a lot of information on their website that they have offered me lots of questions and answers. They actually have a website for their health and safety link that I would be happy to share with any of you if you would like any specific things, or if you have any questions that I can answer for you or get back to you on those questions. I do say the differences are at the hotel, they're grab and go breakfasts versus when we used to sit down and have a lot of those big meals. Food courts are going to look a lot different, but it's already Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is handling those movements. Our restaurant, which I know we have Medieval Times currently scheduled as one of our sit-down dinners, and they have that spaced out and provided for us. Most of the attractions that we do see are outside, which is a great way for social distancing, because that's where many of the memorials are. We do have a day where we go to the Smithsonian's, but we don't do it as one large group. We do break up into very small groups, so that will also decrease our number of people who are together at that time. So I would love to hear any questions that you guys have that I can ease your mind so that we can get excited and get those kids to DC. So many districts around the area is an 8th grade trip, and those kids lost a chance to go last year. So I'm really excited that we had it as a 7th grade trip, and we have that ability to move it to an 8th grade trip, so that there is no student that is comfortable with traveling taken this opportunity is taken with them. We do understand that people are not comfortable, and a lot of those people have canceled, but Ms. Soko and I are very comfortable and looking forward to a yes from you guys tonight.
Thanks, April. Go ahead, Dr. Pomponio.
So what I'm thinking about is all the inside attractions. I know there's many other people from different states that go there. Are they all the buildings going to be open for the students? And then also, how is it handled when you get all the students from all the other states and places all at one time? So I'm just wondering what that looks like as far as, are there longer lines, or is there things that they can't see because of limitation and capacity? So how's that going to look?
So one thing that the travel company is actually waiting for is the DC mayor is supposed to be making a presentation by the end of this month to let them know what DC is going to look like, so that they get a better understanding of what those inside places are going to look like. So I don't have that information at that time because we are waiting for the DC mayor to give those protocols. She said it's going to be a press conference on what's open and what's not.
Okay, so that could change the dynamic of what their itineraries are as far as what they get to look at, or what they are able to see and not see.
So
I mean, I'm
there's
hoping there's a lot of options still.
like those general places that you go in, like the U.S. Capitol, which I'm not even sure if anybody gets into the U.S. Capitol anymore. Those are the things I think that the mayor is looking at. Now, places like the Spy Museum, where we already have a segmented time for our group, they have it set with their COVID expectations. So a lot of the places that we're going, where we would be going as a full group, is a ticket entry, and we are getting those tickets based on the protocols of COVID and the safety.
Okay, and then like on the buses there, are they expected to wear their masks throughout the whole trip? Okay.
They will also be receiving 2 masks per day and their own bottle of hand sanitizer, along with their bags that we get from Bright Spark.
Okay, that sounds good. And I've been a supporter from day one, and this is a great opportunity. I mean, I hope that the students can get all of the attractions to look at, but I mean, this is a great opportunity for the students. So if they can do it, and hopefully they open up everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
What's the rooming situation? How many students are going to be in a room? How does that going to look?
Currently, the hotels and the travel agency is allowing quad rooms, which is 4 students in a room. There is the ability to upgrade to a double room. Previously, in the past, we have never let students be alone, 2 people in a room. We've always done it 4, but we are allowing that this year for those who are with those safety precautions. There is a charge to move up to become a double room. It's $108 for a student to make that upgrade. I do know that there are quite a few parent travelers who are coming that are interested in upgrading their student to a double room, so that they're rooming with their child versus them rooming with anybody else.
So my next question would be, is there a contingency plan on some of this stuff? I just happened to be in Washington, D.C. 2 weeks ago, and I can tell you, you're getting nowhere near the Capitol. Unless something changes. You literally can get closer to the White House than you can to the Capitol right now.
I can't put on a pretty headdress and get in?
Good luck. In the Smithsonian was also closed. So some of those things on and it's been closed. So is there, a backup plan so they're not just hanging around the whole hotel room if this is approved? What's going to happen if those places are closed? I would seriously doubt that you're getting anywhere near the Capitol. In the Smithsonian, I guess, would depend on the mayor, but I would think that we really would have to relook that for sure. That would be my guess.
And like I said, the travel company, they are awaiting to hear that the mayor's press conference, so that we can continue on with what is going to be available for our students. So she's like, I'm ready at the beginning of April to tell you what we can do, but we're really waiting on the mayor to say what is open and what is not.
Okay.
I want to, this is Beth Hinsman. I want to interject for just a second. I went a few years ago as a teacher chaperone, and the year we went, we were supposed to see a outside stampede, USA Stampede show with horses and military bands. The year I went, it rained the whole entire time we were there. And they had to cancel that event. And the tour company was very good about finding us an alternate activity to do, not on the fly, but with a few hours notice. Rearranged our evening where we weren't sitting around the hotel with the kids, made us found a bowling alley, arranged it for all the kids to go bowling. So I think that they're very good. The tour company, it has a very good reputation. They have a lot of alternative plans in place. I believe, and Mrs. Shuck, you can answer this for sure, but I believe the capital on this year's itinerary was just a walk by. We weren't actually scheduled to go inside of it anyway. It was just seeing the Capitol from the outside this year.
That's correct. And the reason was that I want to say, I don't remember how many years ago it was that we went in there. It was like a movie that you watched, and we didn't get a lot of positive feedback from the travelers that was one of their most exciting things, but taking a picture in front of it was great. So we were like, okay, well, let's get to the part they want to go to. There are so many amazing sites in DC. We don't want to stick it with, okay, this is just important. We really want to focus on, there's just so much history there that we can connect to so many different aspects of our curriculum that we've got it.
Mr. Sage, and then Neil, you're up next.
Yeah, so I'm absolutely for the kids having this experience. We signed up last year and we bought the insurance. So when this all went down, we were lucky enough to get the money back. My concern would be just two things. Is one is from financial standpoint for the parents, if they didn't buy the insurance, are they just out if they choose not to?
Nope, actually, if they choose not to go, they have a COVID-induced price that if they choose, if this is canceled by the Board of Education, those who do not have insurance will get everything but $111 back. So the insurance was $79, so it's a little bit more. If the board says we can still go and a parent is still uncomfortable with it, their cancellation, they would get everything back except for $149. So there is a difference between your decision of those who did not get it. But I did hear we had about 70% of our parents who had the protection. So I know there are some that did not, but I could get a better number. I forgot to write that down. She did give me that info a few weeks ago.
No, as long as they're not getting taken advantage of. And then, so how many were scheduled for last year? Do you know?
I think we were scheduled at about 170 total travelers last year, and now we're down to 114.
Okay.
76 of that is students, 29 of that is adults, and 9 are chaperones from the district.
Okay, cool. And like I said, I'm all for it and giving the kids the experience. Is there anything that the students are going to have to know or have to do when they return, or is it status quo?
Yeah, as far as I know, there is no need to quarantine because we're traveling within the United States. So I have not been told that we have to do anything different than those who are traveling to Florida for spring break.
Okay, so they won't miss anything out. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
One thing I want to add to what April said is that if they are getting their money back, they are going to receive it in the same way that they paid the money. So if they raise their money through fundraising, it does not go back to the student. It goes back to the school. And that was one of the questions that the parents had because that is one of the terms of fundraising in the school.
Do we know what percentage that was of the kids that, fundraised versus who paid out direct cash?
I can get numbers. I mean, I have a lot of spreadsheets.
Is it a big number or we thought?
I mean, out of the 170, I know that I sent over $13,000 to that travel company from fundraising last year. So I would have to go back and look at who has removed themselves from the trip, who is currently still on. So I have to look at those sheets and do that subtraction to find out how much is going to be coming back to the school. And we will, because there are so many, we will be having to make a decision on where that goes. How does it get transferred? And be used appropriately by means of all that, when it comes to fundraising.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Mr. Freitas.
Yes, you said the trip got canceled last year. So the 7th graders are now 8th graders. Is it a 7th and 8th grade trip this year?
Nope, we decided with COVID policies, we did not want to even try to increase the size of this trip. Okay. So Soko and I have decided it's going to become an 8th grade trip. So it's going to be like what most districts around here are doing. Okay. It just, we had that leeway. It was almost like, I saw this coming, I have to plan. I can't let kids miss things.
Perfect. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else?
Just one question. In the event that someone gets sick on the trip, I'm sure you've thought about that. Can you let us know what your plan is?
Yeah, let me tell you, because I actually have it right here on. Okay. So if a student gets COVID-19 symptoms while on the tour, so if the participant feels ill with symptoms of COVID-19, which include fever, chills, aches, shortness of breath, coughing, their team will immediately facilitate movement of that participant to a location where they can be separated for others for safety. And they will simultaneously engage their doctors that are on call or their local medical facility consult with the next steps for testing treatment. And then as required, they would establish a coordinate communication with the participant and the family, facilitate transportation for the participant to the medical facility, coordinate quarantine arrangements for the participant in consultation with local health authorities. They would provide guidance to the group to reduce the risk of additional exposure and coordinate testing. And they will be the ones that provide the resources necessary to facilitate the recommended treatment, including the chaperone location for the participant to recover, and arrangements for a new itinerary and return home.
Okay, obviously you put some thought into this.
I read it word for word from their website.
Okay, so all right. Thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
Absolutely.
All right, Mr. Green.
Following up on that question, student A's with a group of 6 people. So those 5 people now are going to be put in quarantine. How does that happen? The one person is sick and is isolated, but the 5 people that were with them, where do they go?
I can ask that question more specifically. I did not read that in the safety guide. I did not think of that question ahead of time. I'm sorry about that.
Right, because if one's sick, the other people have been exposed to them, then you got another issue on your hands.
Right, but please remember that we are required to provide a negative COVID test for every single traveler, and it has to be that PCR test. And they are saying they have to get that test 5 days prior so that we have it 2 days prior. So I am really going with that fact that it's not the rapid test. I'm feeling much more confident that we will be taking healthy people on that trip.
I'm also going to guess that their medical crew is going to do some quick testing, some pretty in-depth testing that they have access to that can determine if there was exposure or not. So that's what it sounded like from what you were reading.
All right. Mr. Craig.
I'm going to jump in and interrupt that and say, if you have somebody who has symptoms, you are not going to get a positive test from the other people around them. They're going to have to quarantine. They're not going to be able to take a test and go back to the world. That's not how it's going to work. So
yeah, no, I agree with you.
Yeah, you're going to be you get a positive test. Those people are out of commission for at least 10 days.
And we are on a very short trip, so I feel with us leaving on Monday, they have to have proof to us by the weekend. We leave on Monday, we're back on Friday. So, I mean, I really feel that I'm confident that we're going to be okay. I really am. I am always that positive person. I've always got to go with everything's going to go right because so much has gone wrong. So I'm going with Mr. Craig. We're going to get this. We've got this. Our kids have been doing amazing at the middle school with social distancing and all those kinds of things. I'm very confident in our safety procedures.
All right. Well, let's move on to that action item then. Do we have somebody who'd like to make that motion?
Oh,
Mr. Sage. All right. We have a motion by Sage.
Support.
Supported by Dr. Pomponio. And then we'll bring the discussion back here to the table. Any further discussion? Mr. Craig.
I'm sorry, maybe my mic's not working. I didn't hear the motion.
Oh, it was a motion by
I can read it. Jason. Is that what I move to approve the DMS Davidson Middle School, Washington, D.C. overnight trip as presented.
Supported by Dr. Pomponio. Any discussion here at the table? Yes, Mr. Craig.
So again, just looking this over, numbers are on the rise all around Michigan here. I guess I just don't feel confident in a test a couple days before being enough to make us feel good about putting 38 people on a bus for a 10-hour, 12-hour trip or something like that. I'm not sure what's going to be open on the way down. I don't know where they stop or how they do that. I believe DC is at a 25% capacity with most of their places, restaurants, such like that. I looked at the Bright Spark website. All I could find was that they're doing virtual tours of things. I couldn't see. Maybe they're giving us something different, but all I could find was virtual tours that they're doing. And I guess I just don't feel comfortable. I know it's not 2020 anymore, but COVID's not over, and I just can't support this. So thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Sage.
I don't disagree with what Mr. Craig is saying at all. But again, I've got to look at it from a different perspective from a parent and the school board. Obviously, we want to keep the kids as safe as we possibly can. But what I don't want to do is take the choice away from what the parents that are with these kids day to day. So me, I was signed up for the trip. We're not going. That's a choice that we made last year. With our circumstances this year, it's just a choice that we made as a family. What I don't want to do is take that choice away from the current parents that have the ability. So that's why I am supporting this.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to participate in discussion on this item?
Mr. President, I'd like to mention, I do support the education of this trip, and I think it's necessary. And I know that a lot of the parents want to try to slowly get back to normal, and I'm sure the students do too. And I just feel that, I don't want to underestimate our students, because the students that I've seen in practice or on the tennis courts and bowling, anywhere, they are being responsible and they're wearing their masks and they're following the protocols because they do want to get back out there. It's not the regular normal, but these are active students who need to have that element of education. So I think that, just as Sean mentioned, we have to leave that in the hands of the parents. And I'm sure the kids want to experience that. And with all the information we're giving them and trying to be safe, I think that maybe we can try to move a little bit forward that way, unless something else comes up and says that this is something major happening or things like that. I haven't heard, but I think that it's important to kind of slowly get those kids back out there learning and back to normal, little at a time. But I think it's okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Green.
I'll be honest with you, this is a tough one for me. My daughter's in 7th grade. I get it. I get going back to normalcy. But we got to look at, parents have a choice, but there's going to be 60 kids coming back and they're going to go into a classroom with somebody else if something happened. And like you said, I've recently been in Washington. I don't care if you go to the Washington Monument. I don't care if you go to Lincoln Memorial. There are people there. You're going to be exposed to other people. It's a big place, but then again, there are people that are going to be going on spring break too, which I know we're not sanctioning that, and coming back to the schools. So this trip is when again? I'm trying to find it.
It's May 24th to the 28th.
And when's our drop dead to the company? Why do we have to make this decision on March 26th or 23rd if we're looking at when numbers are going to go up or go back down? Why can't this get tabled for a month? What's our drop dead with the company?
If I have to get the hotel rooming information to them by April 15th.
Okay.
Mr. Sage.
Mr. Green, again, I can't disagree with anything you're saying. Just like Mr. Craig, you're both right. But we're not telling parents whether they can go on spring break. We're not telling parents what they can or cannot do. If they choose not to go, we're not telling them they got to go on the trip. We're giving them a choice. What we're doing by saying no is we're taking that choice away from them. That's a decision that can be made by the board, right? But I understand what you're saying. If somebody goes on spring break, can we tell their family they had a quarantine for 10 days when they get home? We can't. This is that same type of thing where they're making the choice. We're providing a venue for that, but they're making the choice.
Mr. Green.
So I hear you, but this is where I'm going to disagree respectfully. The spring break's not a school sanctioned trip. We're sanctioning this trip. We're putting our name on it and sanctioning this trip. And we're responsible not only for those 50 kids or whoever's going, but every one of those other kids and those families that are in the middle school. I guess that's where I struggle with it. To me, those are two different things.
No, and I agree with what you're saying, but then what happens if it's a normal year? Are we not going to send them because we're afraid there's going to be an accident in the bus on the way there? There's so many factors involved in this.
I hear you. I'm not just.
I totally get where you're, and I totally respectfully understand where you're coming from too. It's what I'm not willing to do is take that choice away from the parent. That's just me.
All right. Any further discussion, Mr. Freitas?
Yeah. Also, these children have been looking forward to this. Has been a crazy year, and they can still opt out of it later on. If the numbers start going the wrong way, they can still opt out. So with what Mr. Sage said, yes, we don't want to take that option from them. And this is what they have to look forward to for the end of the year. This is like their big hurrah. I've been on this trip a couple times, loved it. And I hear what everybody's saying. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer, but I want to give them the choice, the parents and the students.
All right. Let's go ahead and call the question. I believe we've heard from everybody who wishes to speak. Yes. So, Mr. Lamas, pardon me.
Just one. I'm like everyone else. This is a tough one. Certainly, the choice that we would offer those to go, the parents and kids to go, is an important consideration. On the flip side, the kids that are still here, that when they come back, won't have a choice about who they're associating with, and so we run the risk, of course, of infections coming back. And I haven't made up my mind yet. It's a difficult one, but I see both sides. So, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. Grahowski, will you please call the question?
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Lamos,
Yes.
Dr. Pomponio,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Craig,
No.
Mr. Estheimer,
Yes. Have a safe trip.
Mr. Freitas.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ms. Shook, and thank you, Ms. Hensman, for being here tonight. Right.
Thank you for giving us this time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr.
We'll move on to action item number 2, approval of the Wayne Risa Parent Advisory Committee representative, Ms. Irvine.
Yes, this is an annual delegation of a responsibility that we are required to have at the county level. So I am going to turn this over to Ms. Thomas, who I know is going to talk a little bit about this. And I do believe that Ms. Museworthy is also watching this at this time.
So our Michigan Administrative Rules for Special Education require each educational agency like RISA to have a parent advisory committee for parents of students with IEPs. And as a part of the process, each local board has to nominate a parent for that committee. And Ms. Museworthy is the parent that served our last term for us. And I want to publicly thank her because she went to pretty much every meeting and has brought all of the information back to us. And she's done a great job. So we would like to renominate her for that position again, and it will be a 2-year term. And then if you nominate her, it will go to the RISA board for her to be nominated through them.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Any questions for Ms. Thomas? Seeing none, if we could entertain a motion for action item number 2, please.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Michelle Museworthy to the Wayne Risa Parent Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Support.
Is that Mr. Lamas? Thank you. And any further discussion? Mr. Craig? No? Okay. All right. Go ahead and call the question, please.
Mr. Lamos,
Yes.
Dr. Pomponio,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Estheimer,
Yes.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Museworthy. Thanks, Ms. Thomas. All right, action item number 3. This is approval request of the purchase of CTE Construction Trades Trailer. Ms. Irvine?
Yes, thank you. I am pleased to say that we are thinking differently about how we are going to build homes. Up to this point, the construction trades has built and then demolished homes at the time once the year is done. And it looks like the plan now is to build small homes that are then sold and able to return revenue to the program itself. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Hansen, our new, relatively new in the first 90 days. Mr. Hansen is our CTE director.
Thanks. Mr. Hansen?
So thank you. So as Ms. Irvine said, in the past, they have built a mock home inside of the construction trades classroom. At the end of the year, they demolish it. And it seemed it's a good way to get students to understand how to build a home, but it wasn't very useful once that home was built. So the new plan with our new construction trades teacher is that he would like to build tiny homes and be able to sell those or donate them. The use of those homes hasn't particularly been determined as of right now. But the plan is to try to utilize what they built and have something that is sustained and not something that is just destroyed. So I think that is a good use of the students' effort and a good use of funds to be able to do something like that. I'm coming to you tonight because this is a purchase that is over $3,500 for this trailer to build this home on. And I have to seek your approval to make that happen. The funds that would be used to purchase this trailer are equipment and supply funds that are supplied by the DCTC Downriver Career Technical Consortium. That they offer these funds to us each year and give us a budget for our CTE classes. So those funds actually need to be used every year by March 31st, and we're getting close to that time. And I'm trying to get your approval to be able to utilize those funds before they're recaptured. And I don't like the idea of having our funds recaptured, so I would like the opportunity to be able to spend them.
Thank you, Mr. Hansen.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Do we have any questions for staff? Mr. Craig first, then Mr. Sage.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this to us. So I have, so the CTE money, that's just a pass through, right? We spend it, they reimburse us for it. It's not really coming out of district funds, right? It's designated CTE.
These particular funds are given to our programs at the beginning of the year as spending cash throughout the year. It's different than the last time I saw you where I was asking for your approval for a robot. Those were actually added cost funds that that DCTC would reimburse us. But these are funds that the DCTC has already budgeted to us.
So we have it as expenses for the class then, essentially.
Correct.
Okay. And then is the idea to give away the house with the trailer, or is that just the trailer just for transporting it somewhere?
The idea is to build it on the trailer and then use that trailer to transport it and then have that tiny house lifted off that trailer, and then we would be able to reuse that trailer the next year.
Okay. As a building inspector, I'm curious as to how you guys would do that, because you're going to need some form of inspection certification, probably through the state, a lot like a modular home is done, where they come out, they inspect the process, they inspect what's done. That, I guess it doesn't really have anything to do with the buying of this trailer, but yeah, that's
yes.
This was the land in my community. I would have them, do some investigating work to see how it was done and passed and approved. So yeah, you might want to have them call the state and see about the inspection process for that, so they can get a certification for it.
David Belden, the teacher, is going to a tiny house professional development to understand exactly everything that would need to go into that, and that is in the works as well right now. So
okay, yeah, a lot of the pre-manufactured stuff, the state comes, they inspect the process. They don't inspect each house being built, but they inspect the process, and then they certify that process. So that they can say, hey, that's good and done. But yeah, I mean, as far as the trailer goes, I don't have any issue with. Looks like the lowest bid was from Kelly and Sons.
Yep.
So okay, yeah, I don't have any problems or issues with that. So, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Sage, and then Dr. Pomponio.
Yeah, I'm all for it. My only concern would be, obviously, with what you're saying, which is great, is so it's going to be stored inside the whole time. I just don't want a theft of the trailer. When when it doesn't have the house on it, do we have a place where we can put it where it's not going to get taken?
yes, so inside the construction trades room is actually very large, and the trailer is going to take up much less space inside that classroom than the actual faux house that they build right now. So it's going to actually free up some room to go this route opposed to what they were doing previously.
Okay. Yeah, I just don't want I think we had a bus stolen or something was stolen, some trailer. I think the band trailer. Just as long as we're secure, I'm all for it.
Dr. Pomponio, then Mr. Craig.
Okay, so other schools and districts have done this before, but on site on some land. Is there a reason why we can't do it? I know some of them have stopped doing that, but and like Mr. Craig was saying, I think this would give them a learning experience about getting permits and what it takes to actually do the construction. So is that so far off from what we could do in this district?
That is not good.
We would have to purchase land. I mean, that would be a responsibility of ours. So I don't know. At some districts where it's been done, they've had some land at their disposal, or they go through a whole process of land purchase too. But
okay, thank you.
Mr. Craig.
How high is the door where they're going to be taking this out of? It's just the overhead door right there, right? I mean,
there is an overhead door, but Mr. Belden has done his measurements and made sure that clearance was going to be worked with whatever plans he has with it, with adding the height of the trailer and the height of the tiny house it's going to clear the opening.
All right, I don't want you coming to us next year saying we got to pay to cut a bigger hole in the room or something. So
It's going to be a very tiny house.
yeah, and I guess to answer the other question about the land, we have land. We have land around schools that we could parson off of the back of places. I have a giant parcel over here on Reek Road that I'd love to see single family homes on. So yeah, I got lots of places where we can build houses, but yeah, for this, I have no problem with the trailer again. Thanks.
mm-hmm.
I think you'd have a meeting with a building inspector, but Mr. Green, did you have anything? No? All right. I would assume that there's some type of waiver that would be signed, but I kind of question the liability of this, building a home for somebody and then them taking ownership of that and what our liability would be. But I'm sure that's been thought of as well. Mr. Sage, did you have something else?
Yeah, I move to approve the purchase of the CTE construction trades trailer in the amount of $5,675.
Thank you. Do we have a second for that motion?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Craig. So we have Sage and Craig. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Grahowski, please call the question.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Estheimer,
Yes.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Lamos,
Yes.
Dr. Pomponio.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Congrats on that trailer. Look forward to seeing the finished product.
Thank you.
Well, Jason will make us wear hard hats, though, if we do go and do an inspection. Just everybody shine up your hard hat. Action item number 4, approval of the SES 2021 roofing project award recommendation. Who will be presenting tonight? Rob?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, so the first recommendation we have here, this is for our roofing projects for this upcoming summer, 2021. This includes roofs at 2 schools. It would be bid item 1 is for a section of roofing at Anderson High School, and bid item 2 is for the Grogan Elementary School. So the package that was submitted includes our recommendation letter, a budget summary, the recommendation letter from Intertech PSI, who is the roofing consultant hired to design and oversee the project, the bid tabulation from the contractors, and then the proposals from the 2 recommended contractors are included. So looking through that, our recommendation letter, in summary, basically we have the RFP was formalized and issued on February 18th for contractors. We posted it on the State of Michigan website and also in the local newspaper. On March 9th, we received sealed bid proposals that were publicly opened and read aloud. And after that, on March 11th and 12th, we conducted post-bid interviews, and these interviews were attended by Intertech PSI, myself, and Jacob, along with the contractors for those post-bid interviews. Upon completion of the post-bid meetings, the steering committee is recommending a total project award of $771,837. This includes a total contract award for $701,670 and a construction contingency budget of $70,167. The breakdown for that contract includes bid item 1, which again is for a section of roof at Anderson High School, to WM Molnar Roofing for a contract amount of $198,135. And bid item 2 for Bloom Roofing Systems at Grogan Elementary School for a total contract award of $503,535. With that, just going through the recommendation letter for bid item 2, just of note, Bloom Roofing Systems was the initial second low bidder. We are recommending them as the lowest responsible bidder. VJM Design Build was the initial low bidder. After the post-bid interviews, review of their proposals, we called multiple references, followed up with some questions that had come up, and ultimately the did not feel comfortable with their ability to meet the project schedule with the manpower that they had available and with the references that we talked to about previous projects. So there was definitely concerns in getting this project done in a timely manner with the amount of work that was required at Grogan and getting it done in proper time before school starts back up in September. So with that, the steering committee is recommending Bloom Roofing Systems for that award for Grogan. If we look at the next page of the package, the budget summary, the top part section of it shows the hard construction budget and costs that we have. So gives you a breakdown of the budget for Anderson High School and Grogan. The total between those 2 schools for this sections of roof was $702,825. The total bid construction amount for those 2 schools was $701,670. So we came in $1,155 under budget for that. The construction contingency, we had a 10% construction contingency budgeted. We're carrying through that same 10% for award here. So it goes budget of $70,283. We're recommending $70,167. And then the total award for the 2 projects, then total cost, our budget was $773,108. And the total construction cost is $771,837. So $1,271 under budget for the roof projects for this summer. The next page is the award recommendation letter from Intertech PSI, again, the roofing consultant for the bond program. Summarizes a lot of the same information related to the bid requirements. They do get into a little more details with the size of the projects and the scope of the work, but outlines a lot of the same information related to the award and recommendations for each of the contractors for Molnar and Bloom Roofing. And then you have the bid tab. You can see we received 6 bids total for both of the schools. Prices ranged between all 6 bidders, but we did, as mentioned, we interviewed Molnar Roofing, Bloom Roofing, and VJM design build, all three roofers. It did do post-bid interviews, and it gives you the breakdown of costs for each of those, and then attach the proposals for Molnar Roofing and Bloom Roofing for your reference. So that summarizes the award recommendation. Good participation. We came in basically right on, just under budget for this first section of roofing, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have on it.
Mr. Sage.
Thanks, Rob. So just fine with the bids, all that, the signing off, the final inspection, who is responsible, who is going to be overseeing all of this?
Yeah, so the roof consultant they will have a field technician that will be on site, throughout the duration of the project, a couple times a week, checking in, overseeing each of the constructions. They will do the inspections. They will do the warranty punch list walk with ourselves and Jacob when we go through that. With the roofing, you also have the manufacturer comes through, because ultimately the manufacturer is the one that gives the 20-year warranty on the roof. So the manufacturer will also do a walk of the roof that will go in conjunction with the punch list walk from Intertech PSI. So with all those bodies overseeing the project, they will be the ones to ultimately review and confirm that all items get completed and signed off before the project is wrapped up.
But with the punch list, right? So is it 20-year warranty on all the roofs? Is it across the board, or is it at certain locations it's 10 years, at certain locations it's 20?
For all the new roof areas that we have, it would all be 20-year roof.
20-year roof. Okay.
It's designed with I think 30-year details. So the cupping, seams, the requirements that they have, I think it's at least a 25. It might be a 30-year detail, but the actual warranty period from the manufacturer is 20 years. I believe the contractors have at least a 2-year warranty up front for their portion, and that goes to the manufacturer for that. At Grogan, we are essentially doing the remaining roof sections that did not get completed in the last bond program. So in the 2015 bond, I think we did Grogan's roof in 2016. So sections of that are 5 years old now, and the rest of the building is included in this package. And then Anderson, for right now, we just have a section of the roof, which was kind of when we did the field inspection, this was the area that was of biggest concern, where leaks were coming or potential damages that needed to be corrected right away. So the roof consultant suggested that this section of roof be done here this first summer. So that's how we picked the section of Anderson here to be done this year.
Okay, but you guys as the owner's rep, you'll be their final signing off, so we know that you've got our best interest and we can go to your issues.
Yep. I will be there. I'll be out, out, but I'll be at the punch list. I'll be at closeouts, making sure all the documents come in. At the end of the job, the roof consultant will give you a binder that'll be turned over to Jacob, both a hard copy and an electronic copy that will have all the submittals, all the warranty information, all the contact information, all the punch list info that has been completed. That will all be turned over to Jacob and to the district for your guys' records overall at the completion of the project.
All right, thank you.
Yep. And Intertech PSI was not the roof consultant we used in the last bond program, but the gentleman that is overseeing the program from Intertech was actually with Structure Tech, who was the last roof consultant. So he designed all your roofs in the last bond program and was involved with all the projects. And he had left and came over to Intertech a year or two ago. So familiar with all your roof systems, and he's the one that designed the roofs from the 2015 bond.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Sage. Mr. Lamas.
So how is this sign-off process different than the AstroTurf?
I guess it'll be more thorough. I don't know that it's necessarily going. It's two different processes, two completely different projects. So process that we have. I mean, when it gets complete, they will be on site. They will give inspection reports once or twice a week. Every time they're out here, we will get a field report and inspection that gets sent over to us with pictures, with items that were done. We will have records of those. They will be submitted to myself and to Jacob on a weekly basis. So we'll have records throughout the duration of the project. And then at the end, we will have a final punch list walk off.
But what adjustments have we made in that so we avoid the mistake of the past?
Rob, I think what's important is that we have more on the owner's side than just Jacob. That's making some of those final punch list decisions and sign-offs. At least when we get to that more substantial one that we're talking about completion. Not obviously the little ones here and there, but I
Correct.
think that we want more than that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we can involve, we can get anybody that would want involved with that. I mean, I think we obviously, there were issues that happened with the last one that will not happen again. It's a different process. It's a different consultant. It's a totally different type of project. We will we'll be monitoring it on a daily, weekly, monthly basis throughout this duration, and ensure that you guys are getting the roof system that you guys need and paid for and designed 100%.
I mean, I sure want to be respectful, but you'll have been the common thread in both of these, right?
Yep. I will been the common thread for every project that you guys have had for the last 6 years.
And again, I want to say this respectfully, but if in fact we have a gotcha like we did with the AstroTurf, who would be responsible for that?
I guess it depends on exactly what the issue is. I mean, I guess it's hard to say.
Well, I mean, in the sign off and in the approval process, I guess is what I'm asking. And I'm not trying to be hard nosed about this. I'm trying to avoid another problem, and I'm sure you understand that.
Yeah, no, I understand exactly where you're coming from. So, I mean, I don't. Are you looking for me to say that I would be the common thread? I would be the one to sign off. Then
not you personally, but Plant Moran, right? I think you're the governing body here, right? So if we have a similar gotcha, someone has to take responsibility for that. And I think, for me, I'm not speaking for the other members of the board or administration. I would like to know who that is now, so that if in fact there is a gotcha, we know where to go.
Yep, you can come straight to me. I will be involved with this project 100% through and through.
And Rob, I don't want this to come all across as a negative. It was just one bad experience, and we're just trying to make sure that we're here for the community. There's nothing negative. It's not you. It's just an overall encompassing thing. So
exactly,
just a little gun shy, as I'm sure you can understand.
Oh, totally understand. They're different circumstances, so it's trying to explain some of the differences between the projects. It is a totally different process, but we know what the final outcome is, and we will be responsible and make sure that definitely gets done for you guys. I mean,
thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Kokoski? All right, Mr. Craig.
Thank you. So I guess I think maybe Rob's being a little bit too polite. The biggest difference in these projects is we don't care what the color of the roof is. And we didn't have workmanship issues on the other projects. We had a color issue. So that's going to be really difficult to catch sometimes on a project. I think that's the contractor who ultimately has that responsibility. If he picks, if we spec out shade, 32 white and it comes up as 66 white, I don't know if that we care. But I mean, I'm going to come to Rob's defense a little bit here and say, there's a lot of successes that we've had over these programs. One color mistake in all of that is I don't think, necessarily something that lands on Rob. I think the contractor had a responsibility to do it. We didn't pay them, so they haven't been. It's not out and gone. It's not like the horses are all out of the barn. We're still in control of that, and we're in control of that because we have an owner's rep who's making sure we're in control of that. So I guess I'm going to jump to Rob's defense a little bit there, and that's all I got to say.
All right, let's take one last comment from Mr. Sage before we move forward.
Rob is not on trial here. I don't want this to be a negative about Rob, but on the other side of the coin, Jason, I understand what you're saying, but going through these pool specs and these pool tiles, I don't want a different tile going in than what we spec'd. So I don't want to confuse the two. Rob's doing a great job, but color is a color. So we're picking out tiles for the pool. I don't want to go with a burgundy that doesn't match on something that we're seeing that is spec'd out. So I totally understand where you're coming from, but I just want to make sure at a point that color is an issue, and Rob's our guy, and Rob's got our back. So he's not on trial. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page as where the buck stops.
Yeah, but this is a contract for the roofing system, not for the tile. That's why I don't understand the questioning, but that's okay. Everybody's got their opinion. I get it. I understand.
All right. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the 2021 roofing project award recommendation?
Yes, sir. I move to approve the award of the SCS 2021 roofing project to Bloom Roofing Systems.
Support.
Do we have a second? Supported by Mr. Sage. So I have a motion by Lama, support by Sage. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Teresa, will you call the question, please?
Dr. Pomponio,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Estheimer,
Yes.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes. He's a yes. Thumbs up.
Yes.
Mr. Lamos.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
All right. We're moving on to action item number 5, approval of the Grogan Furniture Move Award recommendation. Ms. Irvine, are you presenting, or is Mr. Kokoski?
Yep, another package here for you today. So this is for the furniture move services for Grogan Elementary. What we're doing in there this summer related to the classrooms, we need to have the furniture moved out of those classrooms so the new flooring and new lighting can get installed in there, which can be a monumental task, moving everything out, inventorying it, and getting it all moved back in at the end of the summer. So the package that we have here today includes our recommendation letter, the bid tab for the prices that we received, and then the contractor's proposal that is attached. So with this service, I met with 3 moving companies that specialize in doing the school moves in and out for the summer construction work. So we met out on site on March 1st. We walked Grogan to look at the classrooms and the areas that would be moved out, the amount of furniture and accessories and stuff in the classrooms that would need to be moved out. So the contractors were able to see each of those, see the areas that the equipment would be stored in for the summer, and then what would be required about moving it back in. We talked through the construction schedule and the timing for all that. So after that, on on March 8th, we received proposals from the 3 firms, reviewed those, and today we're bringing a recommendation to you for a contract award to DMS Moving Systems in the amount of $20,900. This includes bid item 1, which is the furniture move itself, moving everything out of the classrooms in June after school's out, and then moving everything back into the classrooms and setting it up in August before classes resume. Bid item number 2 is for them to provide the moving boxes, the supplies, the tape, the labels, everything that's needed to buy those rooms for a total cost of $4,550. And have alternate 1, there's 4 additional classrooms that weren't initially planned to have the flooring replaced in them, but based on the pricing that we received for the work that you'll see in an upcoming award rec package. I think we'll end up probably doing those rooms with new flooring. So I had them price up moving those rooms out in case we do decide to do that. So that alternate 1 or additional rooms at Grogan to move out for $1,600. So total cost is $20,900 for the moving of Grogan. The next page shows the bid tab for the 3 prices received from the 3 moving companies. And you can see the prices range from for the base bid item 1 from $14,700 to $24,900, and then there's a breakdown for each line item as well too between the 3 companies. And then I've attached DMS Moving Systems proposal so you guys can review that. So with that, that is a complete package for moving out the furniture, and happy to answer any questions you'd have on this one.
Thank you, Rob. Any questions for Mr. Kokoski? All right. I don't see any raised hands, so let's entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the award of the 2021 Grogan Furniture Move Services to Davidson Middle School Moving Systems from the 2020 bond program funds as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Pomponio. Do we have a second for that?
Support.
Is that Mr. Sage? Thank you. All right, I have a motion by Pomponio, supported by Mr. Sage. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Grahowski, you call the question, please.
Mr. Craig,
Yes, for DMS moving, not Davidson Middle School. I'll approve that.
Mr. Estheimer,
Yes.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Lamos,
Yes.
Dr. Pomponio,
Yes, it's late. Sorry.
Mr. Sage.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everyone. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Right, and that brings us to action item number 6, the approval of the summer 2021 renovation work award in Granger Construction.
Yeah, so the last package I have here for you today is the most exciting package of the 3. So this is for our first big summer renovation work that we have here for the bond program. So this includes the work at Grogan Elementary School and some of the work at Davidson Middle School that's planned for this summer. You guys have seen from the previous presentations through SD and DD, the scope of work that's included with these 2 projects. Is the complete award recommendation package for both the contract awards for all the contractors and also the guaranteed maximum price from Granger Construction, referenced as the GMP proposal. So this gives us our guaranteed max price from Granger to complete this work for the summer 21 renovations. Included with this package is our award recommendation letter, a budget summary that we'll review, and then we have Granger Construction's guaranteed max price proposal, which includes all their attachments that make up the requirements for them to submit for the package. So if we look at the recommendation letter, so the documents were completed at the end of January, the complete design bid documents by TMP. On February 4th, Granger Construction put that RFP out for bid for the contractors. We posted it on the State of Michigan website and also advertised in the local newspaper. On February 24th, sealed electronic bid proposals were received and publicly opened. And over the following days were reviewed by Granger and the entire team and steering committee. Post-bid interviews were conducted with all of the apparent low contractors between March 1st and March 10th. And then since that time, we have been evaluating and reviewing all of the contractors and putting this entire package together here for you today. So based on pulling all that information together, the steering committee today is recommending total award for Granger Construction. This includes the, as mentioned, the construction awards for the contractors, and it also includes the GMP proposal from Granger Construction. Within that GMP, it includes their construction personnel costs, their CM general conditions, their CM contingency, their contractor general conditions, allowances, their bond costs, their insurance cost, and their fee for the construction, as stated in their letter that's attached. The total project award recommendation for the summer renovations at Grogan Elementary and Davidson Middle School, along with Granger Construction's costs and fees, is a total of $2,403,728. It's the total recommendation here today. The next page of the recommendation gives you a breakdown, which is included in that cost. So the base bid contract amount for the contractors is $1,955,603. We have an alternate G1 that we're recommending be approved, and this is for painting of the soffits in the classrooms at Grogan. It's an add of $4,300. We have some allowances in the package for a total of $8,240. The trade contractor general conditions for $20,199. And then Granger Construction's general conditions, their staffing, fees, bond, and insurance cost is a total of $219,396. So Granger Construction's total GMP amount would be $2,207,738, and with a construction contingency of $195,990. All those contracts would be awarded by Granger. They would be detailed in Granger Construction standard trade contract and approved by district legal counsel. So that summarizes the recommendation letter. If you go to the budget summary, the next page breaks down all the costs to see where we're at budget-wise. The top portion is the hard construction costs. So you can see the budgets that we had for Grogan Elementary and Davidson Middle School. Total for the budget for those two for construction was $1,981,306. Our actual hard construction cost is $1,968,143. So we're $13,163 under budget for construction for our summer 21 work. Contingency, we had a 10% budget allocated. So we carry that through for that cost. Comes in just under budget there when we carry that same percentage through. The construction manager fees and costs for this phase, we had a budget of $239,626, and the cost came in just under budget at $239,595. So overall, our budget was $2,419,063, and the total cost here today is $2,403,728. So we're $15,334 under budget for this first phase. Which is awesome. The team did a lot of work from top down, from the Southgate administration all the way down to the architects, their consultants, Granger Construction. If you remember from some of our early presentations, schematic design, I think we started at $700,000 over budget was our first presentation we came to you. At DD, we were about $400,000 over budget. We were identifying items that we could allocate or make changes to without affecting the scope of work. We looked at all those. We had 4 deduct alternates as bid protection to help us in case needed. So today we're not recommending any of those deduct alternates. So we're able to include the entire base bid scope of work. So I think it's exciting news. Good work by the team, and had great bid coverage coming in that Granger is able to pull through, that you'll see here with some of the information coming up. So the next few pages I'll just kind of hit on real quick. It's Granger's entire GMP package. There's a lot of information in there, but it basically summarizes what they're including in their package for this summer. So the first page gives you some clarifications and assumptions that we have reviewed and worked through. The second page talks about the schedule. They're ready to start writing contracts tomorrow, start procuring submittals, getting those submitted, getting our materials on order. So we're ready to start construction here in June, with the target of being out of there, wrapped up by September 3rd before school starts. So it'll be a busy couple months of summer construction out there, but they're ready to hit the ground running. You can see the breakdown included that Granger has a little bit more detailed than what we covered in our recommendation letter. Just kind of breaks down some of their general conditions and personnel costs. You can see a little bit more breakdown there, but the total again is the $2,207,738, which would be Granger's guaranteed max price amount for this project. The rest of the attachments are the specifications and the drawings that are included in their contract for the design of it. Attachment A is the specifications. Attachment B is the drawings. So you can see what's included in there. Attachment C is their milestone schedule. They will get a more detailed construction schedule developed and issued to the district and to the contractors, but this gives us a high-level overview of their construction schedule for this summer. Attachment D gives more cost breakdown for you guys to review. It basically When you look at that, it breaks down each bid category, so you can see the trade costs for each bid category, from demolition to electrical for each school. It shows the 5 alternates that were listed there with the costs associated with them, with alternate 1 being the only one that we're recommending for the painting of the soffits. It shows the allowances there that we have for daily cleanup included throughout the duration of the project to make sure the schools are staying clean. That is a billable expense back to the district, so that will be tracked. Anything not used would be returned in that allowance. And then the trade contractor general conditions and the CM general conditions, again, are billable items not to exceed these amounts that will be tracked each month with their pay applications. And anything unused would be returned to the district. Their construction personnel, you can see their staffing that they'll have. They'll have a senior project manager overseeing the entire project. Their project manager will be involved. He will be stationed in the district. They'll have a full-time superintendent dedicated to these 2 schools for this project. And then they'll have a project engineer working with them as well. That'll probably be stationed on site here for the most part, working as well. So they'll have a full team in the district working here this summer. And then it gives you their breakdowns for their fee, their bonds, insurance, and contingency. So this summary kind of gives you a good breakdown of everything that's included. And then attachment E is the contractor recommendation, and it shows the specific names for each contractor for each school. So Grogan Elementary has 8 bid categories, 8 contractors to be awarded, and Davidson Middle School has 6 bid categories with 6 different contractors being awarded that scope of work. They've included a nice recommendation summary narrative for each of those that summarizes the post-bid meetings that were conducted and summarizes the trade packages for those. And then the bid tab with all the bid results for everybody. So really good bid coverage. We had, I think, minimum of 3 bids for every category. In some categories, we had upwards of 6 bids. So I think that's reflective of the pricing that came in and able to get this project down below budget for this summer. So kind of quickly kind of summarizes the package here for you and available to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Rob. Anybody have any questions for this bid package for Rob? Mr. Craig.
Thank you, Rob. Hey, did we do a guaranteed maximum price on the last bond?
Yes.
We did. Okay.
Yep.
I don't recall doing that. I don't see a problem with it. I just didn't recall doing that. So okay.
Yep, it was the same contract. The last time, a lot of them were put in waves, just the way the bidding cycle worked. We didn't always have one complete package coming to the table, and you'll see that with the pool as well. The tax coming, and I think we did that a lot last time because we were doing pieces of it throughout. So this one, we were able to encompass everything, their staffing, and give us one. You know, we had a GMP last time. It was just in pieces and summarized at the end. So here we got everything for this phase wrapped into one package here.
Thank you. Mr. Sage.
Yeah, Rob, I sound like a broken record, but you guys are overseeing the general contractor, correct? From our users?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Granger Construction is the CM. They will be on site with the day-to-day activities, but they will be reporting to myself and Jacob on a daily basis.
Any other questions before we get a motion to that? All right. And I will just want to point out that I got a message from Dr. Paponio, Ms. Grahowski. She had to leave the meeting for a family emergency. Not sure of the details, but we send her prayers and hope all works out well. I'm looking for someone to make a motion here for this action item number 6.
I move to approve the award of the summer 2021 renovation work from 2020 bond program funds and Granger Construction's guaranteed maximum price GMP proposal as presented.
Thank you. So we have a second, supported by Mr. Lamas. All right, so we have a motion by Sage, supported by Lamas. Any further discussion here at the table? Seeing none, Ms. Grahowski, will you please call the question?
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Eshammer,
Yes.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Lamos.
Yes.
Thank you all. Motion carries. Thanks, Mr. Krakowski.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
All right, brings us to our final action item of the night. This is action item number 7, approval of the amended budgets for 2021. This was based on the presentation from Ms. Wilson earlier. Did you have any more questions for Ms. Wilson ahead of this? No. All right, I will accept a motion then to approve the fiscal year 21 budget amendment.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the 2020-2021 amended budgets for the General Operating Fund, Special Education Center, Program Fund, Food Service Fund, Community Services Fund, and Student School Activity Fund as proposed.
Thanks, Mr. Lamas. Supported by Mr. Craig. So we have a motion by Lamas, support by Craig. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Grahowski, will you please call the question?
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Estheimer,
Yes.
Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Lamos,
Yes.
Mr. Sage.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everyone. Motion carries. That concludes our actionable items of tonight. And now we're going to item K, employee representatives. Did we have any employee representatives scheduled to speak?
No, we do not. Although I will take this moment as you go into information announcements to say that whenever you start listing anyone, you're always bound to miss someone. And I just want to highlight that our figure skating Team B is also going to states. So I apologize for having missed them in my lineup. And I want to make sure I give them the recognition that their coaches certainly deserve and the team deserves. So looking forward to that.
All right, thank you. Any information and announcements tonight? Is that you, Mr. Sage? You raising your hand or? Okay.
Sorry, I didn't know I was on mute. I apologize. Yeah, I want to go off of Mrs. Irvine's 100% with all the sports teams. It's not just about sports. It's a certain time that we're in right now, short period of time that these kids have worked in. You know, some of them had to take time off for COVID and all that. So kudos to each and every single one of them. I know there were certain individuals with wrestling that couldn't be part of it because of COVID, and you've worked your tail off. And I respect every ounce of every single one of these athletes out here. But it's not just about the athletes, about the education. Thank you to the teachers. Thank you to the, educators, the administrators. It's been a pain, right? And, we've kept our kids home to some extent because we've had the ability to do so and do remote. So we don't end up in that category where you got to self-quarantine. But, to the athletes and the students, thank you. To Rob, you've done a great job, man. Please don't feel you're on trial. That's not it at all. We're just looking out for the best interest of the community. And you're doing a great job. One mishap does not signify anything. So we know you have our best interest at heart, and we appreciate that. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Mr. Green.
Everything Sean said. Thank you. Ditto.
Any other information announcements tonight? I will just say before we make a motion for adjournment that I thank you all. As many know, my mother had some health setbacks. She's currently still in the hospital, but we thank you for your thoughts and prayers over the past couple of weeks. She's a woman of faith, and I've passed that all to her, and she's very thankful, and as well as myself. So with that, I will take a motion for adjournment, and then we'll meet on the other side in the work session.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lamas. And do we have a second? Supported by Mr. Sage. So a motion to adjourn by Mr. Lamas at 8:49 p.m. and supported by Mr. Sage. Any discussion? Seeing none. Ms. Grahowski, roll call us out, please.
Mr. Estheimer,
Yes.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Sure.
Mr. Lamos,
Sure.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Craig.
Yes.
All right. Why don't we take a 5-minute break, and I'll meet you on the work session side. let's go ahead and get this meeting called to order. Start with roll call. Ms. Irvine or Ms. Grahowski?
Mr. Craig,
Here.
Mr. Sage, Mr. Lamos,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Hello.
Mr. Freitas,
Here.
Mr. Estheimer.
I'm here. All right. Mr. Sage will be here in a second. He's like, you said 5 minutes. There he is.
You did.
Dude, I'm so sorry that you said 5 minutes, so I went and ate some spaghetti roll. I was dying.
Sean,
Noon.
Sean, 2 things before we start. One, when Tim says 5 minutes, you got to speak Tim time. He means immediately.
Dude, I'm sorry. I went in and I ate some spaghetti.
And
I was
2,
dying.
you should have heard what Kelly Thomas said about you when you weren't here. So.
Oh, great.
All right. Let's take a look at item B, revisions and approval of the agenda. Anybody have any revisions or no? I'd like to take a motion to approve that agenda.
Mr. President,
Mr. Craig.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Craig.
I want to
Supported
support
by Mr.
Mr.
Sage.
Sage and Craig because I love that guy. Hopefully he didn't take me the wrong way, and I'm sorry if it came across that way.
All right, we have a motion by Craig, support by Sage. Any discussion? All right, Ms. Grahowski, will you please roll call vote?
Mr. Estheimer,
Yes.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Lamos,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Craig.
Yes.
Thank you. And did we have any citizens' comments for this work session? No? Okay. Moving on to item D, the mode of instruction / in-person board meeting discussion. Ms. Irvine.
Okay, so just like we planned, we're going to kind of give an opportunity to talk through what we might decide in April at our first board meeting regarding mode of instruction. So the comments that Andy made regarding our rates are definitely things are spiking. That's for sure. As far as it's happening to our district in particular, we have had several teams that have been paused. I think I've kept you up to date on what those were. Most recently, though, the reach into the high school has been hasn't been as high as I may have expected with some of those that were happening. I mean, a lot of these were not our students that were putting us on pause. They were an official that was there, or it was, but it is having an effect. We do have right now 4 classrooms that are on remote in Allen as of the last 2 days. And those remote classes are really precautionary. We don't really think that there's much chance of the transmission, but as I've said before, in an elementary class, we're going to flip the whole class over, not just because of risk health-wise, but also because of academics. We don't want to pick close contacts out of that mix and then leave them without an instructional plan for 10 days. So we want to make sure that they stay up with their peers. So that is where we are right now. Having said that, we are still recommending an in-person, virtual, and remote option as we return from spring break. We are feeling that we can still manage this on a case-by-case basis as it's happening actually in our schools. That is what we've encountered at this point. So there are some things that we do have to think about. We have to think about testing guidelines have changed, or athletics has changed pretty significantly based on everything that happened on Friday. So Governor Whitmer announced that all students ages 13 through 19 who participate in contact or non-contact sports starting April 2nd have to go through the rapid antigen testing program. And that means 1 time a week for any sport that requires a mask and can wear a mask, 3 times a week if you can't wear a mask for it. So that's going to really change at least some of our focuses that we've had up to this point, and it's going to take a lot of time. That's a lot of athletes that we have to process. And we're a small district, and we think this is close to unmanageable. I can't imagine what a large district is doing right now with the rate of participation even much higher. So that's an issue that we're working through, and it is an issue regardless of the mode of instruction that we choose. We are, if you're aware, testing requirements, although we were released from accountability in terms of how those scores will be used, the state's come back and said we still have to test and that we're going to be judged by our participation rate, and it has to be in person. So now we're pushing remote students and virtual students into an on-site testing, and we are asking for families to register that they are coming so that we get a count and know how many we're planning for. But we could find our school district impacted by participation rates in terms of who takes these SAT scores and so forth. And then, of course, we are looking at things like graduation. 6 out of 9 of the downriver schools have opted for an outdoor graduation instead of a arena style or indoor. We think that that will be our best and safest option if we want to consider an audience or anyone to see what is happening. And I do think that after our experiences last year, our parents are really wanting and pushing for something that they can watch. So we are looking now at moving out of the YAC, postponing our deposit at the YAC to next year, which we can do and reserve, our spot there. But now considering having our ceremony in 2 ceremonies on the football field right now. And we were looking at May 25th as that original graduation date. Now we did find out we have a large track districts for track, I believe, is on that date. And there are many seniors that we believe are going to get caught up in that, which leaves us to consider June 2nd at 6 p.m. as an alternative date. We are looking at prom. We do want to do as many things that we can. We just have to realize they are going to look very, very different than any experience that anyone's had to date. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of let Dwayne talk about some things that they're talking about the high school and for some of the end of year planning. But I think this might be an appropriate time for all of this to just be talked about. What are we doing and adjusting for some of this?
Thanks, Ms. Irvine. Yeah,
Jason,
talking about
Dwayne. Jason.
Sorry, I just have one question. What were the dates that just got approved for the DC field trip?
May 25th through 28th.
So I think we should probably try and avoid those dates for a graduation because you might have siblings or parents or, I'd hate to see that cross something up. So sorry.
That's another one. No, you're right. We're looking at June 2nd right now.
Okay.
And that'll move us away from May 25th.
Thanks. Sorry, Dwayne. I didn't want to lose that. Things only stay in here so long.
Well, hey, I'm the oldest guy in this meeting. I get it. So, originally when we looked at graduation for this year, we were looking at June 2. However, that wasn't available at the YAC, and so what they had available was May 25th. Wasn't really something we wanted to have that early, but it was, because of what was available. When we started talking with them now about their availability for numbers, we would not even be able to get the entire graduating class in, let alone staff and parents and so on. Now, as things move forward, who knows what it's going to be like in May or June, but we have to go with what we know now. So we started looking at the football field. Some things that we would have to do there is there are tarps that are made for putting over turf like that so that there's no damage to the turf. We would be looking at video and lighting and so on. But with not having the expense of the rental of the YAC, then those things become more manageable and possible. Moving back to June 2nd, having an outdoor date, obviously the later the better. We would also look at having June 3rd as an alternative date in case of bad weather. And we also are working with Asher, who would work right after us for the graduation. Given the numbers, we may be able to do it in one ceremony. If we need to do two, we'll do that. But we'll be able to do it, either way outdoors in the football stadium. Honors is something that we're looking at the numbers of how many students will be participating in honors. It may be something that we can do live. I know I've talked with some downriver schools, they're doing it live, but only with students and then live streaming it. We don't have an indoor facility that would allow us, I believe with the numbers that we have, to do that live, socially distanced, and have others there. The other option is to do virtual, as we did last year, which came off very nicely. However, it's still not in person. So that we're still working with depending on the numbers that we have. As far as prom, we've been in communication with the Rooster Tail. They first said we can separate people, we can get the social distancing with the dinner, but we're not going to allow any dancing. Well, at that point, you're really not looking at kids being interested in a prom if there's not dancing. And yet at the same time, if you do have dancing, any of us that have been to a dance understand what that looks like, and that's really not something practical to do around now as well. So we gave them a call today and said, hey, we're really trying to figure out something for the kids. One thing we don't want to have happen is for us to do nothing and then have these different huge parties pop up where we don't have any control over it, and then that becomes an issue as well. So one of the things they talked about was possibility, and these are just ideas we're throwing out there, is they have a huge outdoor area that can accommodate 1,200 people. Well, we don't have 1,200 people. We'd have around 400 or so in a normal year. The outdoor area includes tents, overhangs, so it's not totally exposed. They could have DJ who would pump music around to all of those areas. We could have videographers who are showing on screens, different things that are going on around the area, and allow kids to dance in those small 6-person pods around their tables. As Ms. Irvine said, it doesn't look like what it does normally, but it gives them an opportunity to get out and experience something that they've traditionally been able to do. Are there other events or anything that we might want to talk about? Okay. Thanks very much for listening. Of course, you got any questions, you can let us know.
Yeah. So this is an opportunity to just kind of allow you to talk through kind of what your thoughts are on this.
Anybody want to weigh in, Mr. Sage?
Yeah, no, I absolutely love the outdoor venue. Woodhaven's been doing it for a number of years. I think it's classy. I think it looks great, as long as we can protect the turf, obviously. As far as the close contact, the testing and that, I think, unfortunately, some of our athletes are gonna stop. I think we're gonna lose some athletes if they got to test every day. In our private club, we've been testing 2 days a week, and that's a lot. I don't know. Nobody knows what's going on in the testing. My kids are doing it twice a week. Do I want to go on 4 or 5 days a week? I really don't. So I don't know what we'll do from that standpoint. So depending on what the governor mandates and what the MHSAA says, that's a big concern for me. I do have a question in regards to, you brought up about kind of making a choice. So my wife got a call today.
I think I want to say, Mr. Sage, can you remember that for 1 second? I have some breaking news.
I heard it.
The cheer team is going to states. They came in 4th place.
Yep, I got that.
All right.
Awesome.
Sorry about that.
Absolutely.
All right. All right, go ahead. Sorry, Mr. Sage.
So my wife got a call today about the returning face-to-face. So I will tell you that we as a family, it has nothing to do with school board. We've taken advantage of being able to stay home. As you guys know, some of you know, my son did states this week. We were not going to take the chance of him not competing in states just because he was in a classroom where he would have to self quarantine after the case. So we chose to stay home this week, not because we don't feel safe at school by any means, because we didn't want to take the chance of losing the opportunity with what could have happened. If we're asking to go face to face, I mean, I have no problem sending my kids face to face. We're not going to DC, so it's a choice that we're making. But is that what we're looking at then? And is there a? My wife said there's a waiting list of some sort. Is there a waiting list to get back into the school? Do we know?
We did have one at the high school. However, we've been able to allow anyone who wanted to come back in person to come back.
Okay.
So there's not at the high school. I can't speak to the other schools.
Okay. I know my kids are in middle school, just speaking from my seat, but
I do think there was a waiting list for middle school
okay.
For a while. I do believe, though, that they've been able to accommodate everyone, and there was a waiting list for a while.
Okay.
Once you had a seat, if you made decisions for temporary pausing, you didn't lose your seat. You were still able to return after that temporary pause.
Got it.
So self-selecting to quarantine was not going to keep you out of that opportunity.
Okay. And then the last thing, I know I'm talking a lot tonight, is like with my work, and Jason, you might be dealing with this, or Tim, you might be dealing with this, as far as I had an instructor, a swim instructor, that tested positive. But when I went through the camera system, they weren't within 6 feet. They had their mask on, and it wasn't for over 15 minutes. So the guidelines for the school, if they're even in the classroom, they could be 15 feet away. But if they're in that classroom and they have their mask on, they still have to follow the quarantine protocol, correct? For 10 days?
Only if they are only in elementary are we flipping an entire classroom over to remote, regardless of whether or not they have been within 6 feet with the mask. So everywhere else, so in the middle school and in the high school, when there's a positive case, we basically take your seating chart and draw a circle 6 feet around that student, and any individual who's sitting within those 6 feet are quarantined for 10 days at that point. And it's traced back to when the the period of contagion is and the last time the student was there. And sometimes the student hasn't been in class and it doesn't impact anybody. So they do look at it on a case-by-case basis, but it doesn't matter if they're wearing a mask or not. Right now, CDC has come out and said that, they can be within 3 feet. But Wayne County Health Department hasn't adjusted their quarantine requirements. Right now, it's still 6 feet. They haven't changed it down to 3 feet, saying that only if they're within a 3 feet radius do they have to quarantine. So it's still 6 feet according to what we have to follow. Even if they're masked, even if there's trifolds, everything.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. And then the last thing, and I apologize for talking so much, is with what's already passed by, the students that were recognized, whether it be for homecoming or prom or whatever it may be, are we going to try to do something to recognize them the appropriate way, as opposed to, a lot of people didn't know about it. I didn't know about it. Some of you didn't know about it. It was a last minute thing. No fault on anybody, but I'd hate to take that away from a senior, their last year, right? I know I'd go nuts if it was my kid. So I don't know where we're at with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dwayne, you can talk about this too, but I would say that at this point, we're looking forward to the planning, meaning that we're proactively anticipating what's going to be coming up as major benchmarks for our students right now, with the intent of how are we going to do this in a way that simulates as much the kind of experience they would have otherwise. That's different than, you were remote for a semester and now a teacher is trying to catch up people on some missed opportunities. I think we're past that. And right now we're looking at it more holistically, where this will be a school event. So you should get all of the kinds of notice and opportunities to attend, and you will, that you would have in any other situation. That's why we're talking about it right now in March, so that we have lots of notice and lots of time to prepare for what we're going to do. Not that it's not going to change, but
Thank you.
And Sean, I'll just share that a couple of weeks ago we did a Spirit Week, had homecoming elections, and I shared that out in my newsletter that I send out. Coming up with prom, we'll do the king and queen. I mean, you mentioned specifically those things, so I just wanted to mention to you that, yeah, we are recognizing those students and letting people know.
Through the chair, I apologize. I'm going to have to leave. I've got a desperately early call in the morning, and I'm not looking forward to it yet anyway, much less having VR sleep. But I do like the idea of the outdoor graduation. I've seen that happen. I was a part of that. I think it's an excellent idea, and the same with the prom idea, being creative about giving an opportunity for an event that they can remember. So I'd be very supportive of either of those ideas or anything similar, whatever you guys would judge best.
Hey, Karen, will you send a summary of this meeting to everybody? Like for Darlene, that's going to be missing it because there's things that she wanted to see on there, and of course, I want Rick to be part of this in-person board meeting. Not part of the discussion, but at least I want him to be able to see the outcome of what we discussed. Of course, he could watch it. He could watch it on YouTube, but I'm not sure he knows how to use YouTube.
That may not be possible, but thank you all. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I'll work with Teresa on that for sure. Okay. There he is.
Jason's got a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Craig.
So I'm going to go ahead and talk about the uncomfortable thing here is mode of instruction. Am I the only one uncomfortable with just continuing on with in-person? I mean, I understand we have the options, but at what point do we say these numbers are going crazy and start talking about the possibility of backing back out of this for a week or two? Again, coming into spring break, I don't know. And I think when we start seeing testing, and if maybe I'm the only one who thinks we're going to start seeing a high positivity rate when you start testing all these athletes 2-3 times a week. I don't know. Maybe I'm the crazy one here. I don't know. Am I the only one looking to have this discussion?
I think as part of our plan, don't we have a plan in place that treats as we have infections or as we have cases in the buildings, they treat those per classroom or per building. So I don't know about shutting down a whole district.
Well, our plan is to discuss mode of instruction every month.
No, you asked a question and that's my answer. I mean, I think that we have a plan in place that, I think that's part of the plan that's in place that I originally voted for, that I still support. I think being able to be reactionary to each individual case and each individual school, maybe that would help rather than shut down the whole district. That's my opinion on it.
Andy, you're muted.
Andrew, you're muted.
But then again, do we want to get to that point at other districts? Everybody's had a plan. Oxford had a plan. Allen Park had a plan. Shelby Township had a plan. Livonia had a plan. They're done.
Well, one thing about Allen Park is they don't have a concurrent hybrid. So when they get the critical mass of quarantine students, you're talking about kids that are removed from their instructional program completely. So that has impacted, in conversations with the superintendents, that's impacted the decision to move to remote, is to make sure that there was an instructional plan for the large numbers.
I understand that and with Allen Park, but those other 4 districts do have a hybrid plan and they had an outbreak of 200 people. So I think what Jason is trying to say is we're going to say we had a mode of instruction and we have a plan. We got to be ready. And I'm not so sure we are ready, to be honest with you, if we take every case individually before this thing rolls downhill and 250 kids are in quarantine. So I hear what he said. I actually agree with Jason on this one. I think it's something that we have to start looking at again. You're at 3,000 cases a day. If you go to 5,000-6,000 cases in 2 weeks, I'll be voting for going back. I'll tell you right now, I'd be voting to go back to virtual so fast it would make your head spin,
I just got an email from our union in our LOA, the letter of agreement. We have a 5% threshold in the city of Detroit. We're at 6.8%. So they're going to revisit it to shut our face-to-face instruction down and put us all back to virtual probably the week after spring break. So I don't know what we had said about a 5% 7-day moving average, but I wonder where we're at in that one. Are we getting close to above that where we were?
We are, but I don't. But that was the way we agreed to that was just to trigger us going back. We never said we were doing that, and once it went back to 9 or 10%, that we were automatically reverting back. That was never anything we discussed. So I'm not saying I hear what you're saying. I'm not saying it's a moot point, but in a way it is on that aspect. Now, do we have to revisit this and this and that? I don't know, but I think we have to be, and I'm not ready, where I digress a little bit with Jason, I'm not ready to shut down because right now in our district, I don't think it's that bad, but I think we better be really prepared for something concrete. If this thing doubles and triples in the next 2 weeks, like it did in the last 2 weeks, and with spring break on the horizon, I don't think you can wait until it gets to a critical point.
That's my concern. I'd rather be a little proactive. Maybe, again, so we say, okay, we're going to go remote for a week, and then we have a chance to see where things are at when we come back. That's all I'm saying is I'd rather be proactive, not have to shut things down. We go asynchronous all the time. Every Wednesday we're asynchronous, this Friday it's asynchronous. So it's not, I'm not talking about shutting the program down and send everybody home. I'm saying maybe we talk about pausing this thing for a week on the way back and see what everybody got into when they were on vacation. Cause we had we had a lot of teachers testing positive when we were not even in school. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not so worried about the students as I am the teachers. Yeah. I don't know what we're going to be dealing with teachers when we come back. So that's why we're here. We're talking about mode of instruction, and that's my thoughts about mode of instruction, I guess. So.
Thank you, Mr. Sage.
No, I agree with both what you guys are saying, Andy and Jason. And as far as having a plan in place, I don't know if it's a percentage or what it is. There's no rhyme or reason with any of this, right? That there's more vaccines going out than ever before. We've got all these parameters in place, but yet the numbers are now spiking from the younger kids. There's no rhyme or reason. And so I think we need to be prepared going forward. Is there a number? Is it 10% that we hit and then we decide at that point? So not sitting on our hands and waiting for something to happen, having a plan in place. I'm not a proponent of shutting things down at this present time, but again, I'm not a proponent of testing athletes 5 days a week. I don't know what's going on with the testing. Vaccinations. Everybody has their own opinion about vaccinations as far as whether you're going to get vaccinated or not. So we can't sit on our hands. And I felt as a board, I'll take the blame for it myself. I felt we sat on our hands after we made a decision in September. And I think we waited too long, and I blame myself for that, for sitting, not being proactive. And I think what we need to do at this point is what's the number that we say, okay, enough is enough, and we have to go virtual. But we also have to keep in mind that, yes, Wednesdays are asynchronous. This week, Friday's asynchronous. But for those parents that might have two parents working, we've got to keep them in mind and have a plan for them so they're prepared that if we hit, whether for easy terms 10%, they know, hey, I got to work out some of my work. Look, I can't get any employees on work because everybody's collecting unemployment. So
I would just, one point I need to make is that logistically, it will be difficult for us to just decide to err on the cautious side and shut down the week we return from spring break. And the reason logistically, I'm just kind of putting it out there. I know it would be, the idea is, maybe we just give that a try and maybe it'll be fine because other schools are doing it. But we have 80 students that are that are shifting from remote to in-person, and they start that week, and they are not yet set up for the remote, a remote environment with their new teacher. So
Right.
just so you know, that is, I mean, we can make it happen if we needed to make it happen. We've done quite a few things very quickly. But so you know, that is a logistical issue for us.
No, and I understand the reasoning with that. I'm in that boat. My youngest, my 6-year-old, is in first grade, just turned 7. He's going to school the day we come back from spring break, right?
Yeah.
I will tell all of you, we're going to Florida. We're going to Panama City. We're going to do our best to be as safe as possible, but this is a time that I am taking my family. We're not going to Washington, D.C., and we're going to play it as safe as we can, but
Yeah.
he is expected to return. So for us to say now that we're going to take a pause, I agree with what Sharon's saying, but let's not set our hands. Let's have something in place that we say if we exceed a number that we got to make a transition, which I don't want to, but unfortunately that's the world we're living in right now.
Mr. Craig.
I'm going to say I'm going to say I think there is a rhyme and reason to this. Governor comes out and says everybody's got to be back in school by March 1st. Restaurants open up 50%. 3 weeks later, the numbers are shooting up. There is a rhyme or reason to it. I mean, it's not magic. The vaccines are going out, like you said, more than ever. But the two things that happen is we got to open up schools by March 1st. Everybody's got to be back, and restaurants can open up 50% again. And all of a sudden, I went by Texas Roadhouse last night. They must have been giving stuff away because that parking lot was full.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I'm telling you, it's Thunderdome out there. Anything goes, and that's the stuff that leaks back into the school. That's the stuff that affects us and how we can provide instruction. So that's my concern. I realize it's not easy. It's not an easy decision. It's just something that concerns me is, you know, what do we do if we do have these, again, we have teachers come back testing positive or showing symptoms. We have kids come back testing positive, showing symptoms. They weren't around each other for the last 2 weeks because of spring break. And or they were, and we don't know it because we don't track that. Right. We don't track when a group of 15 families go to the same place. That's not something we track. So again, it's just, I have a lot of concern and angst about our mode of instruction. I don't know that numbers are the best way. I think we realize that numbers can be twisted and piled and pulled, and we can pull from one place. We can testing rate and daily positivity. I don't know what number I would agree on right now. My head would spin if I had to agree on a number, but I think we just need to start looking at this with some caution and being careful.
But Jason, on the other side of the coin,
instruction.
What you're saying, and I don't disagree, but you also have the CDC now taking it from 6 feet to 3 feet. You know what I mean? You have all these factors in place that there's no rhyme. That's why I say there's no rhyme or reason. I get what you're saying. They open things up and the numbers go up. Yes. But at the beginning, you know, they're saying it's not transmitted through kids. What do you believe? You know,
I don't believe
that. We're going from 6 to 3, and we're following all the guidelines that we're supposed to do. We're trying to minimize the risk to the best of our ability. You know, other than us sitting down and staying in our houses, which people still get COVID when they've done that. I don't know what else to do.
Mr. Freitas.
I was going to ask, what is the 7-day moving average right now?
You're on mute.
Right now, we're a little above 9 daily new cases per day average.
So, Theron, having heard from everybody, is there? I would assume that you're going to probably have your team work towards having some type of a plan in place. You know, we don't know what that number is. That's something that you'll have to kind of, unless we.
Yeah, and here's the thing that we have to kind of also talk about, that we can prepare for the possibility, and we can monitor and watch what's happening. And we can find ourselves at a level that we can't tolerate. We don't need a board meeting to shift the, remote of instruction to remote. We can make that call can be made just like we do on a snow day, on a whatever that is. So, tonight we're not set out to have a meeting. We don't have a meeting yet, again until April 13th. So we kind of have to realize that we're going to have to watch this. And if we want to have a conversation or an emergency, special meeting to talk about what we do next, we can do that. If we get to a part and decide that we're really uncomfortable, we can call it. That's not, I know that we have this very static kind of monthly consideration, but we might find that circumstances change to a level that we have to act between those moments in time.
Yeah, I'm hearing a level of uncomfort. So I just
we
want
also
to
have
make
to
sure.
follow we also have to follow the guidelines per the governor's order, correct?
Absolutely. Yep. We do have to follow guidelines for the court. Yeah. Governor's order. Yeah, absolutely.
We're doing the best we can with the information we have.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so I can't see anybody being at fault on this. We just, at what point do we say enough is enough and we go remote? Because listen, my wife stays home, right? But what about those two household working parents? Mm-hmm. We have to think about them. We got to figure out they need to know in advance. We can't just gunshot and say, hey, guess what? Everybody's remote. And
no, I agree. I agree. And I think when I suggested it, I didn't mean it in the idea
I know.
long term, but yeah, it could be a shorter term stint. But
we have anybody else that wants to weigh in on mode of instruction before we move on? All right. The second part of that is in-person board meeting discussion. Did you want to start that discussion, Sharon? Did you have something to share with us? Or?
Well, I did. Just so we, several attorney firms have weighed in on this. Pandemic has been quite profitable for law firms. You can gather. Anyhow, for instance, Collins and Blaha has their recommendations, and I'm just going to go ahead and share this or present this with you. Can you see this? Yes?
Not yet.
No.
Not yet. Okay. All right. Well, escape. Share. Let's try the share function. No, that's not going to do it either. All right, guys. You guys have to help me out. Anyway, I'll give you the clip notes because we're all tired. So until April 1st, the governor basically continued to allow boards to meet virtually or a hybrid or in person with some kind of overflow meeting the 25 capacity limit. And we would say that would be true for board members too, between up till March 31st, because if we're allowing, virtual meetings to happen, the opportunity to do that is there. We didn't have the equipment to make that happen at City Hall. So just without it being awkward, clumsy, and people really unable to participate. But starting April 1st, unless there's a change between April 1st and April 19th, we have no option to meet completely virtual. That's not an option. So we actually have to meet in person. And we either have the technology for interaction to happen concurrently with us, or we do it the way we've been doing it through the citizens' comments, where those are spoken, or we meet in person only, and we don't have a virtual component for people, but we have an overflow area that anyone beyond 25 can go into and see and watch a live streamed. So they can be physically present for the purpose of communicating with the board during a time of open comment, but can watch that from an overflow area. That's another option. But what is important is that we would not be able to hold our meeting in April fully virtual. And Jason, I don't know if you're seeing anything different, coming forward.
That's unless there's a state of emergency declared by the county or the city.
Right.
We would not be able to continue.
Right. Or a board member has a medical condition, then that individual can participate virtually up to a certain point.
Right. But that doesn't allow for the hybrid. That doesn't allow for the virtual like we're participating in now. And I haven't seen anything about overflow in any of the meetings or any of the decisions, because You have the governor's order that says you can meet virtually, basically as a roundabout of the Open Meetings Act. And then you have a separate order coming from the health department that says you cannot have more than 25 people meeting. So they're not the same order. They're two separate orders from two separate groups who are saying two separate things. So I would, again, I haven't seen anything on an overflow, and my concern is I have a concern personally about doing I guess what I would call a disconjointed participation from the audience. On a night like tonight, if we had 5 members of staff there or 6 members of staff in addition to our normal, you can't tell that sixth. And I'm also going to say, I know because this has been said before, first come, first serve. First come, first serve is not in the Open Meetings Act either.
No, it's not.
There's no such thing called first come, first serve in the Open Meetings Act. So if that 5th person or 6th person tries to walk through the door and we say, get out, you're violating the order, I think we're in violation of the Open Meetings Act right there. That was just my opinion. I'm not an attorney. I play one on TV, but I'm not an attorney. So, to the best of my knowledge, we haven't gotten a legal opinion on how that would go.
All right, I can send that legal opinion that I have that's been sent out and take a look at those. And it does speak to an overflow concept that if you are exceeding the 25 and you have an overflow and you have a live streamed in a physical location, like in a lobby area or so forth, that you can still meet the requirements of OMA. But you're absolutely right. You cannot distinguish between one audience member and another in terms of who participates. The OMA would reject that. But somehow it has to work because we are going to have to meet in person if they don't change that, or there's not something that intervenes for the April.
Yeah, or the question is, what do we do about violating the health department order and have 26 people in that room? We're not in violation of the Open Meetings Act. We'd be in violation of, I don't know, what I'm sure Texas Roadhouse was in violation of when I drove by the other night, and I didn't see the cops show up. So
yeah, well, I will send this to you guys. You can take a look at it, and we can have some more conversation about what we think that means. And I know our tech department is working on some technology for some hybrid virtual participation environment. A better suited one that can allow. I mean, it doesn't relieve the board from the responsibility of sitting in person unless there's a medical condition or if they're affected personally in an area that's been local or state emergency. But we do need something that allow that to happen. So we may want to look into some technology, but that is a purchase. So we'll keep looking into that.
Hey, Jason, in regards to the Open Meetings Act, if we are live streaming, if we're live streaming it as we do, that's allowing participation. Is it talk about physical participation in that act? Okay.
Yeah, there's no requirement for us to record a meeting. There's no requirement for us to stream a meeting. Okay. The requirement is the physical presence, that you're there, you open. That's why, again, when we go through the silliness of in a closed session, we hold the door open until it's called and then we close the doors. If we close those doors early, we're in violation of the Open Meetings Act. So, I mean, it's technicalities. It's I guess, weird technicalities, but, I mean, we've had meetings before where we've made mistakes and the door person didn't show up and nobody could have got into the building. Now, nobody was beating on it, but yeah, that was a violation of the Open Meetings Act because we didn't make sure we had a door person and the front door was unlocked.
Yeah.
And
I would imagine during this state order where it's the audience is limited to 25, for instance, I would say that as far as guest speakers being invited, I would just keep it to a minimum. Obviously, the best we can. The superintendent might have to speak on their behalf, or it might be done through a report or something. But we could probably maintain a smaller audience of our own to allow for more people to attend. We can manage that a little bit more. Just as a thought.
Yeah.
Sure.
So anyway, I think the next step is just getting you this language so that you can feel comfortable with what the advice is and see their perspective on how that interacts, because it is pretty complicated to find out how all of these things kind of overlay.
Any other discussion on the in-person board meeting for right now? No, okay. All right, item E, the ESSER 2 spending plan discussion.
I'll just make this fast. We have 2.4 million that's allocated to Southgate Community Schools. Under the most recent decision with the legislature, only 40% has been released. That 40% can be used for educational technology, building repairs related to air quality, operations in the furtherance of preventing or remediating learning loss, working for, students that providing academic opportunities for students to prevent learning loss, and that's a big category. That means $900,000 is coming to us. We have to have a plan by April 23rd. But just so you know, it's an easy one for you guys. I'm just letting you know we're putting it all towards Chromebooks at this point because we need to either repair or replace the Chromebooks that have gone out to our families this year. So licenses, Chromebooks are going to take 700,000 of it. 200,000 will be left for medical assistance and all of the PPE, disinfectant, and basic health mitigation. So that covers everything. So there's not really anything controversial about that, hopefully. Please certainly chime in, but that's what that is. So if you have any comments on it, no problem. And we'll hear. And if not, we'll just let you guys go.
Anything else? Anybody have any questions or comments about that ESSER 2 spending, or any questions for Sharon on that? All right, well, I think that's going to wrap us up. Sean can get some spaghetti. I'll continue eating my Skittles dinner, and I'll accept the motion for adjournment.
I'll make a
Anybody?
motion. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Sage. Is there a second? Supported by Mr. Craig. Sage and Craig. Any discussion? No? All right. Ms. Growski, roll call us out.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Estheimer.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Good night.